Okay, so remember the distributive property. When there's a number right next to a parenthesis and there's no plus or minus sign in between, it's just a number and a parenthesis, and you have something being added or subtracted inside, you use the distributive property to multiply. So the first one here we're just going to look at, the first thing we do is do 7 times x, so that's 7x. And then we do 7 times 4, which is 28. And that's your answer. You can't go any farther than that. There's no equal sign. We're just simplifying expressions today. So the next one, 2 times b is 2b. And then 2 times -3 is -6. And that's it. And then the next one, -4 times y is -4y. -4 times 3 is -12. So we're just multiplying in. And then for this one, -5 times m is -5m. And -5 times 2, -2 is +10. Now here, you see how there's not a -1, but I just added a -1 here? When there's a negative outside of a parenthesis like that, it's really meaning a -1. This is the same thing as -1. So when we see that, we're just going to distribute that -1. When we distribute a -1, it just changes all the signs in here. Because when we multiply anything by a negative, it just changes it's the opposite, right? So if we had a positive y and we're distributing a negative, now we have a -y or a -1y. And if we had a -9 and we're distributing a negative, it's going to be a +9. And that's it for that one. Okay, 8 times 4, that's 32. And then the next one's 8 times -b, which is -8b. Always put the number before the letter. So this coefficient, the number in front of the variable, it comes first, and then you put the variable. Okay, so this one, -4 times -w is a positive 4w, because negative times negative is positive, and -4 times -10 is a positive 40. Okay, the next one, positive 5 times 2m is 10m, and then 5 times -3 is -15. Okay, distribute here as well, so -3 times 2x is -6x, and -3 times -4 is negative times negative is a +12. I know this is review, but it's good to go over all this stuff before we get into solving equations, because then we're going to have tons of this stuff all at once in one equation. So make sure you really know the basics first. 3 times m is 3m, and then 3 times n is 3n, and that's it. Okay, here, x times y, you just write it xy. We can't combine those at all. One's an x and one's a y, so we're just going to multiply them together and leave them like that. And then x times 4 is 4x. Remember, always put the number, that coefficient, that number, before the variable, before the letter. So even though it's x times 4, don't write x4, write 4x. Okay, and then here dc minus, and then d times 4 is 4d. Okay, so this one is 6a times b, which is 6ab. And then 6a times 2c, well, we have to multiply 6 times 2, which is 12, and then a times c. So 12ac. 6 times 2 here is 12, and then a times c is just ac. That's how you write it. Okay, here we have 3 that we're distributing to. So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times -y is a -2y. And 2 times 8 is 16. All right, and then here we're distributing this x. So 2x times 2y is 2xy minus x times 5 is going to just be 5xz, because you have an x there and a z there. We can't combine them. We just put them right next to each other. They're just multiplying to each other, which is what they're doing right here too. So x times z is just xz. And then x times 1 is just x, or 1x. You can write 1x too. That's fine. Okay, so let's think about how to do this. You can think of it logically. You can think of what's 1/4 of 8? this is pretty much just saying 8 divided by 4. But if you're not sure, you can write it out like this. So you have 1/4 times, because this is multiplying here, times 8 over 1. And then you cross cancel. So you can divide both of these by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, and 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then you just multiply across. So that equals 2. Okay, so we can replace 1/4 times 8x with 2x, because we just found out that 1/4 of 8 is 2. So I'm going to replace this number with 2, and then put an x there too, because there's an x here. And then 1/4 of -4, we can do the same thing. You can either just divide right away, but if you're not sure, write 1/4 over here times -4 over 1. So -4 over 1, and then we can cross cancel these. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and then -4 divided by 4 is -1. And then just multiply, so equals -1. So I'm going to replace this 1/4 times -4, I'm going to replace it with -1, because we just figured out that that's -1. And that's your answer there. Okay, so let's try 17. 1/6 times 3/5. We can just cross cancel right away. So 3 and 6 go into each other evenly. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so we have 1 left on the top. 1 times 1 is 1. And we have 2 times 5 is 10. We have 10 left on the bottom, so it's going to be 1/10. And then we have to put that x there. So because I can erase on here, I'm going to erase that. And now I'm going to do 1/6 times 18. Remember, I can put the 18 over 1. And I can cross cancel here. And if you need to write it out too to see it, like 1/6 times 18 over 1, that's fine. And then you could cross cancel here, that would be a 1 and a 3, because you can divide both of them by 6. And then you would just be left with a 3 on top. So plus 3. And that's your answer. Okay, let's try this one. So again, we can cross cancel the 8 and the 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, and then 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then you just multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 5 is 10, and we have a negative in front of it. And then we're just going to put an x, because that comes right here. And I'm going to erase this, and then do it with the 24. I'm going to put the -24 over 1, and I can cross cancel here. So I can cross cancel the 8 and the 24. So 8 divided by 8 is 1, 24 divided by 8 is 3, and then I can just multiply. So it's going to be 3, because I just have a 3 left on the top, and I have 2 1s left on the bottom. We multiply. And it's plus 2, because we have a -1/8 times a -24, which is a positive 3. Okay, let's look at this. So the last ones, to simplify an expression means to ensure there are no parentheses and no like terms. In order to do this, distribute first if needed, and then combine like terms. So we need to get rid of the parentheses first, so we're going to distribute first if you need to, and then combine. So we can distribute here, so let's distribute there. So 8 times 2x is 16x, and 8 times -3 is -24, and I'm going to bring that 6x down. Now I have two like terms. I have two terms that are x's, so I can do 16x minus 6x, which is 10x minus 24, and that's your final answer. Okay, now I have two different terms I can distribute to. So the first one, 9 times 2 is 18k, and then 9 times -4 is -36. Now when you're distributing this is a -2 times 7, which is a -14k, and then it's a -2 times -12, which is a positive 24. And then you're going to combine. So 18 minus 14 is 4k. So we can combine the k's, and then we can combine the constants, the numbers without the variable. So -36 plus 24 is -12. Okay, remember for 21, if this has a negative in front of it, you can either distribute just the negative and change the signs, or you can put a 1 there if that helps you. So we're not distributing this 10. This is a really common mistake, including for my Algebra 2, okay? So actually I'm going to go back for a second. People do this. We can't do that because look what's in between. You see how there's a negative in between? That doesn't mean that the 10 is multiplying with these two. It means that it's 10 minus this thing. So we're not multiplying the 10 to these. So do not make that mistake. We are distributing this -1, this negative sign, because that's what's touching the parentheses. So just bring that 10 down, and then it's minus y, because -1 times y is -y, or -1y. They're the same thing. And then -1 times -6 is a +6, and then bring down that -y. Now we can combine like terms. So we have -y minus y. Remember, that's the same thing as -1y minus -1y, or minus 1y, which is -2y. And then 10 plus 6 is 16. Okay, now we're going to distribute here. So, and there. Remember, there's also a -1, so we're just changing the signs here. So I'm going to bring that 6 down, and then 8 times 4 is 32w. 8 times 7 is -56. Minus 2w, minus 1, and then we combine like terms. So 32 minus 2w is 30w. Remember to put the variables first when we're solving. When we're simplifying. You always want to put the highest variable first. So we have just w's here, so put the w part first, and then look at the constants, or the numbers without a variable. Then we're going to combine all this. So 6 minus 56 is a -50, and then -50 minus 1 is -51. And that's it. So try the practice now, the practice problems, and we'll correct them next time.